Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About It. This is your host, Taylor, and I hope that you are having the best kind of week that you possibly could today. I want to give you all a friendly reminder here that it is probably the last week in most states to be registered to vote. So if you have not registered to vote, please make sure that you are registered to vote. If you are able to early vote, please early vote. Please, please, please get your vote in. Use your voice. It matters. We need this, y'all. So today is a very special episode. All episodes are special. Today is an episode I've been looking forward to for quite a long time. I won't give her a huge intro because I really want y'all to hear all the things that we talk about with the amount of time that we have in this episode. But today's episode is with the lovely Erika Lust. Y'all have seen me partner with Erika Lust Productions. She is the creator and founder of XConfessions, Else Cinema, and the new Else Cinema, all that are erotic indie adult films. And I've talked about Erika Lust on the podcast many times and just the different films and different productions, and have always used them as a reference for ethical porn, for porn that is made from the perspective of women and for women. And I just am honestly so excited to share this episode with y'all because I was so excited to record this and to finally actually get a chance to chat with Erika and learn a little bit more about her and about how the whole process works. On their website, she definitely does provide a lot of information in terms of their values, in terms of how they actually produce ethical porn, breaking it down honestly from like 8 value points that I will go over with her in this episode and kind of ask her to like expand on a bunch. We've had a few people on the podcast who have featured in some of her films, and I hope to have many more on the podcast. So stay tuned for that because I love talking with sex workers and want to have more of them on the podcast. But very much enjoyed recording this episode with her. I hope that y'all check out some of her work. She's got a very, very famous TED Talk about changing the industry in porn and has also written several books. And again, XConfessions, Else Cinema, Else Cinema have all been really transformational for me in terms of how I have viewed porn. And it definitely shows you a ton of the things that mainstream porn lacks, like condoms and consent and lube. And it's just been really awesome to partner with all the different Lust productions. And I hope that y'all have enjoyed them as well. And I hope that y'all are excited about this episode, how I am. So I won't continue to chat about anything else. I'm really excited to share this episode with y'all. And I hope you like it. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about porn. We're going to talk about ethics. We're going to talk about values. We're going to talk about diversity. Let's talk about it. All the things. All right. Welcome, Erika, to the show. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I know you have a super busy schedule and you're currently going through a move right now. So thank you so much for making the time to chat with me today.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed, I feel like I already feel connected to you partially just through like watching your work and enjoying it, but then also partnering with you and your different productions, over the last six-ish months maybe. And I've just really enjoyed partnering with you and I'm super excited to be able to kind of get to know you and get to know a little bit more of your work in this area. I would love to kind of learn a little bit more and maybe just kind of introduce some of our listeners here too as to like how you even started out, like, and got to this place now
right.
of, having this huge production company where you're creating these amazing indie adult films. So how did this like even start for you?
Mm-hmm. It's a long story, obviously. And it started, I would say that it started already when I was a young adult. It started in my mind back then. I was, like most people, interested in pornography. I wanted to find out about, what I liked, who I was, what turned me on, that kind of stuff, and how it was done also. I mean, I think everybody kind of watch porn to figure out how sex is done somehow. And that's actually one of the problems with with lots of the online porn that we have today. But we can talk a little more about that later on.
Yeah.
But for me, so what happened was that I started to watch porn, and I realized that I kind of liked it, and at the same time I didn't like it. And I had completely mixed feelings about it. And it felt to me somehow like women ended up being reduced to objects, being reduced to the ones giving pleasure, but not really the ones having pleasure, not really the ones, having their story told through porn. It was more like we were this kind of help to men's pleasure. And that felt very reducing to me somehow, because from my own sex life, and I mean, I was a young adult, and from the little that I had seen at that point, but still, I had the feeling that sex was about giving and taking and having a great time together, not only being there performing for the men. So that was kind of an issue for me, and at that time I had just started university. I was studying political science and gender studies, and I was all into trying to understand the world we live in. I wanted to analyze power structures, and especially, gender balance, kind of what was happening there. So when I started to talk to friends around me about how I felt about porn, I realized quite quickly that most of my male friends, they liked porn, they used it in their own life, and they had a good time, and it wasn't a big thing for them. But most of my female friends, they have kind of similar feelings to mine, that something was not working 100%. And still, we were young, liberal, open-minded women, we were not afraid of the idea of porn. It wasn't about, oh my God, people are naked. Oh my God, I can't watch people having explicit. That was not.
And this is also in Europe too, where I think more American women might feel that way, of feeling that like, oh, people are naked, there's vaginas and penis, and this is a lot.
And seriously, I mean, that's completely okay. Obviously, if you don't want to watch porn, I think that's fantastic. Also, you can definitely have a great sex life, and you can be a very sensual and erotic person. You don't have to like porn. I do understand that there's lots of people not wanting to watch it, but I wanted to watch it. It's just that I dreamt about porn being for me, being from, from my perspective, telling stories about women somehow similar to me, experiencing their sexuality on screen. That's kind of what I wanted to watch. And then I was, I always loved films. I wanted to become a filmmaker, but back then I thought that was impossible. It felt like completely something that was for very few people and artists and people who, who had that kind of education, not for anyone. And I had never studied film at that point. So it wasn't even, in my mind as an idea. I was just thinking about why was porn working this way and what's happening. So I started to Google, and I came across a very great book called Hardcore, The Frenzy of the Visible by Lina Williams. She was a film professor at Berkeley University. And this book explained the whole genre of pornography to me in a way that I had never imagined, because it started to talk about that porn was not just porn, that it was actually this kind of discourse talking about sexuality and about how we interact sexually together, and about gender roles. How are we actually represented on screen? And all those ideas kind of got together in my mind somehow. And And then I didn't do anything about it, really. I was about there to say that I did something, but to be completely honest, I didn't back then. But then life kind of happened, and I moved up because I was born in Sweden, but I moved down to Barcelona in Spain. And when I needed to find a job in Barcelona. I needed to start earning money, obviously. I ended up working in the audiovisual industry. Nothing to do with adults at that point. I was just, at the beginning, I was just driving cars. I was a chauffeur, and I was making juices and coffees, and I was doing, all the assistant work that you can do in a film, on a film set. But little by little, I learned, how it all worked. And as I had so many creative ideas, I realized that I really wanted to try some of those ideas out. So I took some film classes, and that was actually when I got an opportunity to do a short film. And I wrote a little script, and I started to think about, would it be possible to do something that was explicit, but my style, kind of? Could I do an erotic, explicit something for me that I would enjoy and I would like? And I wrote this little script called The Good Girl, and it was actually, the whole idea was taking the pizza, the pizza porn cliche, the pizza guy comes and then obviously they have sex, but taking that story and making it from her point of view, from this woman who wanted an experience and her fantasies, and I made that film, and then I didn't know what to do with it because I didn't have a big plan of becoming, porn director and porn producer and making a production company. It was just an experiment, to be honest. But I put it online because at that time, that was 2004, and at that time, internet was with the kind of the blogs were booming on internet, and people, the internet had just started to have kind of the velocity, so you could actually watch a film online, or you could download it. And I put up my film on my little blog, erikalust.com, where I was writing about, pornography and feminism and filmmaking and all of this. And suddenly it took a few weeks, and the film had millions of downloads. And it was crazy. And I couldn't understand how people had found me. And still today, it's kind of a mystery to me. But okay, if we go back and remember internet at that time, internet was not what it is today. There was not as much content as today, and there was not as much porn as today. That has changed dramatically, right? So I think somehow this film got viral. People started to find out. They come by and they downloaded it. And they started to write to me, and people were like, "Hey, Erika, I love your film. This is really good. When are you going to make more? Please make more." And that's how it all started. Then it's been, many years, and it's been difficult and challenges and all of that. Of course, it's no sunshine story from one day to another to make a production company and have success somehow. It's a lot of work.
I can only imagine. I'm like, just making one film alone, that beginning film feels like that would probably be a ton of work and a lot of things to figure out, and be all the combinations of scary and exciting and adventurous and all the things. All right, I want to take a short break right here to share with y'all one of the lovely sponsors of this podcast, Equilibria. I know y'all have heard me talk about CBD in the past, but I want to be very clear here that all CBD is not created equally when it comes to quality, efficiency, safety, because it's actually not regulated by the FDA. So new brands pop up every day with untested products and zero disclosure as to where they're actually sourcing from, which is like, No, thank you. So I've actually been able to pull this up on Equilibria's website. They have very strict farming practices, similar to what a medical hemp farm would use, even though they don't actually have to. They have their own farm, one farm, and supply chain, and they oversee the production in-house from start to finish. It's ethically sourced, the highest quality, fully traceable. It's derived from the hemp flower only, which is actually the purest source of CBD, and other brands also use the stalks and the stems and the leaves of the plant, which just creates a lower grade, which is therefore results in a less quality product. But one of the things I want to share with y'all that I think is fan-freaking-tastic about Equilibria is that you're actually assigned a dosage counselor. Essentially, they have a professional background in cannabis and they're a dosage specialist because everyone's body is going to need something a little bit different. It's not like a one-size-fits-all for CBD. So I love that they actually have people on hand specializing in this to be able to help you figure out what products, what dosage. One of the products I absolutely love from them, they have these roll-ons. They got the bath bombs. They got the relief cream. Major fan of all of their products. And when you get your first box, it will come with a recommended 10 milligram soft gel every morning after breakfast that they recommend, plus I think I said 1 milligram, 10 milligram soft gel every morning after breakfast, and a 10 milligrams, like one dropper of daily drops in the evening. And they really like walk you through like a whole recommendation of a CBD routine to get you started. So they're super helpful, and I really hope y'all check them out. You can go to myeq.com and use code Taylor Nolan for 15% off for new customers. That's myeq, myeq.com with my code Taylor Nolan. It's been my favorite CBD site with lots of amazing items to choose from. I think you will definitely find something there that suits your needs. So with all of that said, we can now get back to the show. I'm wondering if like during that period of time, and maybe even now as well, maybe the people have changed from then to now, but as you were getting into this, like who were your mentors or role models? Did you have other people from then or today that you would look to for inspiration, or that you would find were doing porn from a different perspective with more female focus to kind of learn and kind of get creative inspiration from?
Definitely. There are always role models. There are always people that we look up to and we try to learn from and do it differently our way also. In the book I was mentioning before by Linda Williams, she introduced me to Candida Royale, who was one of the first female adult filmmakers out there, really. And she started to make her films already in the 80s. And I think that her films really opened up my mind to what it meant making a film from a female perspective. Because I could, when I watched her films, I could really understand the female characters and their desire somehow, how they were desiring, what they were desiring. And I always felt that those films somehow invited me to this erotic journey of the characters. So she was definitely an inspiration. But then there's also many mainstream filmmakers that I look up to and has become more and more with the years, because really we've seen a shift, I think, the last 10 years here. But there are films like The Boys Don't Cry by Kimberly Peirce that I just think are fantastic, and many lately I've adored, watching Transparent by Jill Soloway. Now Joe Soloway, by the way, she transitioned. And but there's so many. There's a long list there of fantastic women lately. I mean, have you seen I May Destroy You by Michaela Cole? It's power, really power there. So there's many women inspiring me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely want to find the links for all of those resources that you just mentioned and include those in the episode notes for folks to be able to check out as well. It can feel like a very daunting place to start it, like exploring, right, around adult film, around female pleasure. And one of the reasons that I love your films and your platforms is because they are very different from what we see in mainstream porn, which we'll kind of get into in a second. But I'm curious, like, what your ideal vision for the future of pornography is, if you feel that you're there now, or if there's like places that you want to go with that.
I mean, it's a big question. Yeah. Am I there yet or not? Yeah. I'm still playing. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to do my best every day. But what I really, really feel is, me as a filmmaker, I can definitely see the advancement. Kind of, if I go back and I look at my first short film, I mean, technically there's lots of things that I just didn't know back then. But still, when I look at that film and I see the spirit, the feeling of the performance, how they connect to each other, the sex was really great in that first film. And that's what it's all about in the end. Yeah. But what I've done this last year that I'm very, very proud of is that I have kind of transitioned from doing only short film format into doing feature films and series. Yeah. And for me, that has been important because it's a way of being able to stay with the characters for a longer time, getting to know them, kind of developing something a little further than just the feeling of, one situation. I love the idea of being able to follow a character and see how they develop sexually through a script. I think that's really amazing. And actually, I've in this moment, I'm in a pre-production of a new series that I'm gonna shoot in the end of October, if everything goes well, because as we are all living in COVID times now, you can never plan too much because you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and I mean, that's a lot of what you're doing, like on Lust Cinema. And this does transition well for me because I wanted to talk about the series Primary with you. Yeah. And specifically, like, there's a scene with Michael and Kira that I absolutely love.
We need to say also that this is directed by Casey Calvert and not by myself. It's produced by me, but directed by Casey. Yes. And I think she is fantastic. She's also a great inspiration. I'm so happy that we met, and I think she's just a brilliant mind.
Yeah. No, there's like many directors and actors and actresses that you've had in your films that I have gotten to learn more about, that now I'm like, I'm such a fan of this person. And now I'm like, I feel like I just want to have like every person that you've had on my podcast now. And I'm just like, I want to be friends with all of you. Yeah. But to this, like, you have a whole values page, and anytime we've partnered or I've shared a film or a new platform, whether it's Lust Cinema or Else Cinema, I've always kind of shared this values page as a resource for folks because, again, doing that exploration into porn, people want to make sure that they're ethically participating in viewing of porn. And, there are a lot of ways that your films are different from mainstream porn. And one of those, for me, that I've noticed is around, like, consent, around the conversations that are actually shown. And in this series of Primary on Lust Cinema, Michael and Kira have this whole exchange, and it's like piece by piece that he's like, you know, before he even goes to like take her dress, like the strap of her dress off, he's like, is this okay? And it's like done in a very like sexy way. And like they check in with each other. And even on the intern, there's a scene with him. He's one of my favorites. But like there's so many examples of this kind of check-in between actors that I'm like, oh my God, yes, this is so great. Like, please, we need to see much more of this.
Because this is definitely something that people are needing, that we've seen these last years, that is lacking in conversation, in real conversation between people. What happens with adults is kind of funny, because in adults, people normally have these conversations behind the cameras. You know, everything is talked about before. Remember that when we are shooting an adult scene, the whole process before shooting has been taken care of. All the STI testing, now also the COVID testing, etc. So you know, we are really there, and the conversations have taken place about how the sex is gonna be, what it's gonna look like, if we're gonna use condoms, lubricants, toys, etc., etc. What kind of, you know, positions that the actors prefer, what do they like, what boundaries do they have, what do they don't like, is there something they definitely don't want to do, or they don't want to do today because it doesn't feel like they're in that kind of mood. Because we have to remember that when it comes to sex, that is changing all the time. Even during sex, what you want can change. And that is something that why I think it's so important to have this conversation on, not only behind the camera, but also on camera, to show people that how we can have these conversations, how we can talk, and how we can do it, as you said before, in a sexy way, in a way that doesn't, you know, doesn't cut the mood. Because I think that people are very afraid of that somehow. They feel like if I'm starting to talk about my boundaries, you know, he's gonna wanna run out of here. And we need to get beyond that. We need to get to a place where we feel completely comfortable to talk about what we like and what we don't like, how we feel today, and what mood we're in. And I think that if we can show that to people, I think that we can really help people to start having these conversations without being so afraid of how the other people will, you know, take the whole situation.
Yeah. All right, I want to take a short break right here to share a relatively new sponsor of the podcast, Rory. And I want to talk about skincare for a second, because y'all know I like everything personalized, but personalized skincare sounds very fancy. And I'm like kind of iffy about it. But with Rory, you can have a brand new skincare routine crafted just for you without ever leaving the comfort of your couch or your chair or your bed or your house, really. It's a digital health clinic for women that can treat all your skin care concerns, from breakouts to redness. Getting started is so simple. You complete a free online consultation at hellorory.com/talk, and you'll hear back from a U.S. licensed healthcare professional within 24 hours. If appropriate, they'll prescribe a personalized skincare treatment plan that works just for you, with free 2-day shipping. Whoop, whoop. And Rory is really there every step of the way. So you always have access to your healthcare professional for questions or to make changes to your treatment. There are no commitments, and you can cancel anytime. So I hope y'all check them out. You can go to hellorory.com/talk to try out your personalized treatment for just $5. That's hellorory.com/talk for a free consultation and $5 for your first order. One last time, make sure y'all get this. It's hellorory.com/talk to get your first order for $5. That's a deal. I hope y'all check them out, and we can now get back to the show. so the safe sex environment piece that you have in your values page, we did just kind of just talk about there around STI checks, and like using condoms and whatnot. And I think that's one thing that people also like when they do watch porn and mainstream porn, that there's no condoms really. There's none of these conversations that we're seeing. And I think people, even when they think of sex workers, they think like, oh, well, what about STDs? Like, how do you feel safe having sex with someone? And there's a whole other stigma around STIs and STDs that we'll definitely get into in another episode. But curious what that looks like. Is that just like a pre-film, pre-casting? People are getting tested and having those conversations behind scenes. What does that actually kind of look like in practice?
Well, in practice, it's something that we are very clear with, that we do, before a shoot, that performers can always have a look at the other partners, the co-workers' paperwork, so both of them are completely feeling safe in that situation. And then in practice, it's kind of, we bring a sex box to set where we have everything that is needed, from soft tampons to condoms to different kind of lubricants, if it's silicone-based or water-based or, special for I don't know what. But it's really, I think in the end, this is about caring about people. It's being very careful with the whole environment. And I always talk a lot about this when people are curious about how does it work with performers and casting. And I mean, when I propose a script to performers and a character, I ask them with whom they would like to shoot. Because for me, the easiest way of having people who are into each other and who like working together is just asking them, And I think it's very important to be clear on if they have a no-go list of people they don't want to work with, because sometimes people have. And, a favorite list. And everybody has favorite coworkers. For performers, they have people they trust, that they know, they feel safe with, and they feel good with. And then
maybe they have their dream list too. They're like, I want to fuck this person.
Yes, that happens. And what I do if I'm putting together people who don't know each other before, then I set up a Skype interview with them so they can, take their time to get to know each other and ask each other those detailed questions, or those personal questions that maybe you don't want to talk in front of the whole, the whole crew. And then I check in with them to make sure that they feel comfortable with that person and they want to work with that person. And it's the whole process. And then what we do is normally we have a person designated on set taking care of the performers, a kind of talent manager. So they know that they have a certain person that they can go to if something comes up, because obviously we need to be very careful because things can come up. Here,
you're dealing with people. People make mistakes.
Of course. So that's very, very important to be kind of I used to say that in my profession, you need to be able to read people. You need to be able to check in if they really are saying what they want to say, etc.
Yeah. Well, I love that you include like conversations around boundaries within like creating a safe sex environment. And one of the things too that I definitely want to call attention to here is Pineapple Support, their mental health services for adult performers. And you partner with them, you sponsor them within your company. And I think, talking about a safe sex environment is not just about STDs and STIs. It's not just about condoms. It's not just about the logistical pieces of it, but a lot of this work in general is stigmatized, right? There's a lot of these conversations and what I would consider like emotional work, right? That goes into even being able to do the work to begin with. So I'm curious for you if you can talk a little bit about like why that's important to, partner with a company like Pineapple Support, why ensuring that like your performance performers have access to mental health services is important?
Well, I mean, obviously mental health is important for everyone in the whole world, kind of. And it's something that lately, I think we are becoming more and more aware of the need of taking care of our own mental health. But when we are talking about the collective as sex worker and porn performers, obviously they are stigmatized in on a whole different level than just regular people. That's how it is. And for them, sometimes it's very difficult to go and see any therapist out there not knowing anything about sex work or about porn performance. Because, you know, when you start telling your story and your problems, suddenly they're telling you, so why are you doing this? Why don't you stop? Yeah. And that's not what you want to hear. You know, this is your work. This is what you're doing. You just want to deal with the issues that you want to talk about. So what Pineapple Support does is really, you know, having this network of professionals where adult performers can go and know that they will not be stigmatized, that they will be understood for who they are, and the first thing they don't have to do is to kind of explain themselves, because it gets tiring having to explain yourself all the time, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that.
I mean, it's like we can make an example for a doctor, for example, in a hospital. If he or she complains about their work, people will not say, so why are you a doctor? You know, why don't you do something else? You know? But you need to be able to just get it out of you sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and even I think working with therapists where they're not viewing your work as the problem in your life as well, because they have this bias and stigma around sex work, right? Where as a sex worker, you might be coming into therapy because you're dealing with anxiety, and that therapist with their biases and stigma around sex work might kind of project that your sex work is creating that anxiety or is, you know, a part of that anxiety, and just kind of perpetuating that stigma. And that can be really, really dangerous. But I think one of the things that's important here, even in just in talking about mental health with sex work and Pineapple Support, is a bit of like the humanization of performers in porn. And I think that's one of the things that I've really benefited from, you know, watching XConfessions and Else Cinemas, is that, I mean, I'll list a few examples on my end that how I've recognized that humanization of performers, but curious if there's other things on your end. But, you know, you list like the bios of the performers when I go look at a film. Like I get to see a little video of them, and I'm going to reference Michael here again. You know, and his little thing, like I think if I'm remembering correctly, he was like a firefighter before or something, and like was interested in like all these other things. And it was like, oh, like cool, I'm getting to know this performer and like a very different way, and seeing them talk about why, like how they got into this and why they do it, and all of that just felt like I was in the right place in a way. And it felt very humanizing, which made it like sexier to me too.
No, I totally agree with you. And that's the whole idea. I want to show who these people are, because I feel that sometimes on the online tube sites where they're showing all this horrible porn, because lots of it is really kind of disgusting in terms of how they treat women and the racism that's out there, and it's denigrating in so many ways, and they kind of treat the performers as pieces of meat somehow. And I want to do that differently. I want to show who they are. I want to show the humanity of every person. And I think that it's also important to tell the world and tell people that, you know, adult performers are really wonderful people. They are interesting people, and they have lives and they have families, and they need to earn money to be able to pay for their apartments and their schools of their kids, and, you know, everything around them. So that's why we need to pay for our porn, really. You know, it's the whole idea with free porn is ridiculous, because it makes it takes all the value out of it. And this is a real job, and it's an important job. And when it's done well, it should be worth paying for it. That's how it is. But showing, these interviews with people and showing who they are, I think it makes people understand that they are not just this kind of disgraceful poor people who didn't have any other options in life, and that's why they are doing it, because there's many people thinking that, and that's very very far from the truth. I mean, the people I met, they are intelligent, they are smart, they are funny, they are people taking care of their health and their bodies and their sexual health and their mental health and really caring for other people. And I really want that message to come through to just regular people thinking that they are not important. Yes, they are important.
Yeah. And I think it also takes away a bit of the shame and stigma of even just watching porn to begin with, that like you somehow become less than because these people that you're watching are less than. I think it helps take away some of that unfortunate and very problematic stigma.
Because suddenly you are not profiting on them,
Yes.
You are there and you are supporting them. It's a whole different kind of point of view.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a short break right here because I've got a friendly reminder for y'all to check in on your mental health. I don't know if y'all are paying any attention, but there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and it is completely understandable if you need some support, if you need a little bit of a check-in, okay? So let me allow you some space here to give yourself permission to need help or to seek help. Again, this all brings me to one of my favorite sponsors of the podcast called BetterHelp, which is an online service where you can get affordable, professional therapy from licensed therapists. This is not self-help. It's not a crisis line. This is actual therapy. And the service is available for clients worldwide. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are actually recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. So if you're looking for more work, definitely hit them up. And if you're looking for some support, also hit them up. I just want all of y'all to start living a happier life today, because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So as a listener, you will get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/talkaboutit. You can join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/talkaboutit. So I hope that y'all take advantage of this and check in with yourself. It's okay to need a little bit of help or to want some extra support, especially with everything going on in the world today. So with all of that said, we can now get back to the show. So, and let's talk about pay for a second here, because this is also on one of your values here. Pay every person fairly, from interns to performers, and every director or studio that you feature on your sites is paid commission from the sale of their films. We did just kind of briefly touch on why paying for porn is important, but can we talk a little bit about actually getting paid as a performer? And I think selfishly in my head too, I'm also one day I might want to be like Sunny and Jasmine and be a therapist and be a sex worker. And so I'm how does pay work in this kind of a field? How do you go about even ensuring that you're getting paid what you're worth, right? How do you even determine what that amount is, how justified the amount is based on what kind of scene you're doing or who you're working with or any of that? Can you just kind of share a little bit about how all that works?
It's a little different between different countries and between Europe and the United States, because in the United States, there's more of a star system and there's more kind of agencies working and agents that are representing the performers. So normally they have already worked out kind of the payment system for different kind of scenes or different kind of productions or sexual experiences, and how how much it costs to hire someone, etc. So in the United States, many times it's kind of proposing, you get in contact with an agent and you're saying,
literally like if you're casting for just
and you're starting
like
to
a basic movie
negotiate almost, that's kind of how it works. And then sometimes you sign a contract before, so everything also is clear on how many days and when and where, and all that is kind of taken care of. In Europe, it's more of freelancers working, so it's not that much of agencies representing. And I think that we have, at least if you look at Berlin, Barcelona, London, there's more kind of an indie scene maybe going on. And for us, it's a lot about trust. We tend to work with a pool of performers that we have gotten to know during these years. And what we try to do when we have kind of newcomers coming in, it's trying to ask for references, other people they have worked with that we know, asking, if they have good references and everything is serious, because that's kind of what you need to be, but in the end, it's mutual trust. It's really finding a balance of payments and days and
It sounds like it almost goes to that kind of typical negotiation you would expect just for hiring any kind of actor. But one of the things, we talk about paying for porn, and I think that is so important. I think I'm learning more and more the importance of that. But also balancing, like having access, like having the kind of films that you're making that are so different from mainstream porn, still having those be accessible for folks. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about like how you balance your value of accessibility with that in mind, with people also paying for access to the platforms.
Yeah, sometimes people complain when it comes to porn. They say, "Hey, why is it so expensive?" Kind of, And I think there's also important to understand that porn and adult is normally, when we're talking about payment platforms online, that they are more expensive than, for example, Netflix or, the streaming services that we are getting. And one of the reasons is obviously because of the payment system and how expensive it is to process payments when it's adult. People don't know that. They have absolutely no clue, but it's complex, and it's a percentage that is much higher than any other business online. If you sell shoes, the percentage of a payment processor is very small. If you sell adult, it's a very high limit. So that's interesting to know. But then I think what we as a company, what we are always trying to do is finding, a price that is more or less logical. And then we're trying to have lots of opportunities of watching for free. We have a lot of freemium possibilities, It's kind of come on and have a look, see if you like it, because I at least want to be able to offer people, the opportunity to watch a short film or watch a first episode of a series, to see if they like the style, to be able to have that opportunity to check it for themselves. So if you come by, you can almost always find an opportunity to watch something for free. And then if you follow, newsletters, there will be lots of opportunities also for, special occasions. Now, soon we have Halloween coming up. We made some very special films for Halloween this year, and I'm so excited to be able to share them with you. I just watched the first cut of one of the movies yesterday, and it's good. It's really good.
I love that. It sounds like so much fun, honestly, to be a part of all this. Like even just like seeing your excitement there, I'm like, that's amazing. Yeah. That makes me so happy. Yeah. I have a few fun questions that are kind of a little bit personal and also just fun. Okay. But before we get to those, my last question here around kind of the values page that I want to touch on here is your commitment to diversity in your casting and, what, if any, challenges that poses or that you've had to kind of go through with this. And I'm also curious, too, because most of your filming or cast, at least I'm assuming here, is more from Europe versus the States. And so that's kind of like a different pool in general. I'm being very naive here because like I've been to Europe once in my whole life. But in your films, you show a variety of different kinds of relationships and people, like not just like racial backgrounds and different ethnicities, but also, diversity within relationships of poly and, even trans folk. Like your films were the first places where I was like, oh, this is a trans person in a porn, and I'm watching it and I'm like very attracted to them. Like I would want to fuck this but woman who's trans.
I love that. I love when it's eye-opening, when suddenly we can break this kind of heteronormative idea of porn, because I think that many online sites have had kind of that feeling that it's for that audience. But I feel that my audience is so wide and is so open, and and I have a gay audience watching even heterosexual films on my site, saying, hey, I love this film, etc. I have, women watching. It's all over.
Gay men together, and you're like, that's hot.
And even heterosexual men writing to me sometimes saying, hey, I watched that film with, the gay men. And I thought that I would never watch that, but I love that film, and it really made me understand how it works and what it's about. And it's not so different, and you go, I love that. We have helped people to open up their minds and, and not seeing sex as something small and boxed, but open and human. And I think that what we really want is we want to represent human sexuality, and we want people from different ages. I mean, I shot with a couple who were over 70, I shot with a woman, I shot with pregnant women. I have shot with, as you said, with trans women. And now I had the best message the other day because one scene with a trans woman and the two women were nominated as best lesbian. And, she just went, wow, this is the first time this happened. I'm so happy that I was considered a woman, So diversity for me is essential. Diversity for me is one of the things that I can't say really that I lacked in porn, because it exists in porn. We're not going to lie. We're not going to say that porn is not showing diversity, because porn is showing
it exists, but it's also very fetishized and perpetuates racism.
There you go. It's like, how do they do it? That's the problem. It's not that they don't do it. It's how they do it. Come on. Yeah. Stop boxing us, into all these boxes. Let us be humans. Let us meet together. So that's really one of the ambitions. And as you say, it has been difficult in Europe, for example, to find different ethnicities, because, Europe is Europe. Most people, we look more or less the same. That's how it is. So it's been easier in America, for example, to find different ethnicities, to work with more POC people. It's, we have opened up, but we are... my whole team, we are doing an effort really to try to find people, to get people into this movement. And I'm not only talking here about performers, I'm also talking about the crew, the people behind the camera, because diversity is all over. It's in front, but it's behind, and it's only when we have people from different backgrounds who are starting to tell these stories about sex that we can change the general perception about sex.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, I think, a practice and something that you have to be intentional about. And, you know, I think not just from on the values page, but also still seeing the diversity within your different platforms and whatnot, that it is something that you're being intentional about increasing and about making sure is shown in a light that is authentic, that is pleasurable, that is
and especially
not perpetuating stigmas.
And especially telling people that they are welcome, that, you know, this is a place, our production company is a place where they are welcome, you know. We have open doors. So if you are, you know, a director out there or someone who wants to perform or have an idea, you can contact us. You know, we are here and we want to listen to you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I want to transition here with some of the time we have left to some of these kind of more fun questions. I appreciate you sharing all of that.
Now. What are they going to be? Woo!
Well, first, just if there's a little bit of an update on this LA studio, because I know you had launched a studio in LA and kind of pre-COVID and everything. I was like, very tempted to be like, can I be in this? Can we do that? I was like, I've never been in a film before, but I was like, I don't know, maybe I could just like be a cameo and like make out with someone and then
but that would be fantastic. That would be absolutely awesome. I think that maybe I should put you in contact with Casey Calvert, and she could get you into the mood.
Yes.
that seems like okay. Yes. No, but the LA studio, the whole idea with Lust Cinema when we started was to work more with LA, or not LA based, US based, directors and performers and you know, really get in more to the American market, because we all know that it's a huge market. We all know that it's a very influential market. If you want to change, you know, people's visions about sex, we need to be represented on that market. So that was the idea. And a year ago, we started this whole project. I spent the whole summer in Los Angeles, met a lot of people, put, you know, in motion lots of different projects. It was fantastic. The plan was that we were going to come regularly, but then COVID hit, of course, and now we're kind of stuck here. But the good thing is that we are working with wonderful directors over there, and with Zoom and, you know, online conference calls. We're in constant contact, and especially Casey has really, you know, developed as a director, and the work she is doing is fantastic. I mean, Primary, for me, it's one of my absolute favorite series. I think it's a great work, really. And more is coming. She has just shot more material, and it's looking really, really good.
Yeah, I loved Primary. I love Kira is so hot and fantastic. And I love, like, she has like smaller boobies and I have smaller boobies. And so like watching her, I'm like, yes.
But I guess that's what we all want somehow. We want to be represented, whether you have small or big or I don't know what, you know, but we want to feel represented somehow on that screen. We want to see people like ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and even the relationship dynamics being represented too, you know, I mean, I won't fully give away the premise here, but in the scene that I was talking about with Michael and Kira, you know, Michael was not her boyfriend, but they were hooking up, and the whole way of even how they got to hooking up, I was like, if it wasn't COVID, I want to do this. I want this whole scene here to play out. Episode 2, I want to be made a real life experience for me. And I know you just referenced Primary as one of your favorites, but curious what what are some of your favorite films? If there are favorites that stick out for you.
There are, favorites. I have so many. Honestly, I have so many, and it's been so wonderful to start working with different directors and to see work by others, because in the beginning it was a little too much of myself. It felt like I was doing everything, and I needed, I needed to do other things. Also, I have a life also. It's not the only thing I do making films. I have 2 daughters and I have a dog, and but favorites, the whole kind of XConfessions project is also something that I'm so in love with. The whole idea, that people are sending in anonymous confessions and then we make films out of them. There's one that has been one of my favorites forever. It's My Moaning Neighbor with Mickey Maud and Vex Factory. And it's really,
he's really hot.
I love Mickey Maud. He's also a very good friend. He became a friend, and he's just so wonderful. And I love everything he's in. I just love it. Safe Word that we shot now lately. It came out this summer. He's also in that. And also Nina Hartley, which is another super favorite of mine. And Mona Wales, of course. She's a great actress. She's doing such a wonderful job in front of the camera. The whole series, Safe Word, for me, it's been one of the best experience really shooting it. Also with The Intern, where you have Michael and Lena Anderson, and they have this moment that is just electric. They are connecting one late night in the kitchen over pasta, and
that whole scene, it really got me. I was like, I want you to feed me, Michael. It was great. It was really great.
There are so many, and then there are some pieces that are more kind of experimental, but that I also love. There's one called Dirty Feet I did a few years ago. It's obviously about foot fetishism, but it's a very poetic piece, really, and it's just beautiful. And there's the performers performing there. They were also a real life couple at that moment, and the chemistry they had, and just the way they kind of connect with each other is just outstanding. I could talk forever about favorites because I think I have hundreds of them.
Well, and so then, do you use your platforms or your films then to spice things up in the bedroom, or for yourself personally when you enjoy your own solo self sexual pleasure? I feel like if I were making those films, I would for sure be okay, this is really hot. Even when I talk about it, I'm like, oh, this is so hot.
Well, sometimes it's a little strange when you have made the work yourself, especially when you have worked with it quite a lot, and in the editing room, and you're correcting things, and you go this doesn't work. I want to do this instead, and
then make it less sexy.
Kind of, because then you watch it very technical at that moment. But then what happens to me a lot is that when I go back and look at something that I did, I don't know, a year ago or even 2 years ago or further back, suddenly I get surprised by the beauty of the work, because then I have forgotten about everything that didn't work out, or that that was different from what I wanted. And then I can just, watch it and relax and enjoy it. So that happens sometimes. But then what mostly happens is when I watch the work by other directors, because then it's kind of, they surprise me, even if I read the script, and because I read all the projects and all the scripts that we are greenlighting, I've been through all of them, looked at the mood works, all the work in pre-production. But still, when you haven't been on set and the work comes in and you watch kind of the first rough cuts and you feel, this is good, then I get very excited.
Yeah, I love that. Well, my last question for you here is around self-care. What do you do? I mean, like you just said, you're a mom, you're a partner, you run all these, several different platforms here. You do a lot. So I'm wondering kind of what self-care looks like for you.
Well, self-care is training. I love training. I mean, even today, if I've been, doing boxes all day because of this move, I was training this morning, for example. For me, that's energy. That's life. That's how I, wake up many times in the morning. I love walking in the woods with my dog. I love the Mediterranean. I love, this summer I started with stand-up paddle surf.
Paddleboarding.
I love it. The feeling of, being out in the especially early in the morning and see the sunrise and all of that. So I do lots of that kind of, when it's winter, I'm Swedish. I love skiing. I love the snow. Nature, I would say, for me, nature is self-care. It's a lot about, how you live and sleeping and moving and eating. And I try to eat as green as possible.
Yeah. I would say nature for me is always a big one too. So I'm like, you can see my plant behind me here. There's lots and lots of plants in here to make me feel as close to nature as possible. So I feel you on that one. Thank you so much for your time, for all of the input, for the education here. I'm wondering, before we sign off here, if there's anything that you want people to take away from your films, if there's anything you want people to be aware of when they are watching films, any kind of last takeaway that you would want our listeners to know, either about porn in general or about your porn.
No, I think that one interesting thing is maybe to take it up where we started when we were saying in the beginning that some people don't even like porn, and that's also okay. And I want to tell people that for people not liking porn, we just launched a new platform with softer content called Else Cinema for when you're looking for something else. That was kind of the idea, but this stands for Erika Lust. Soft edition, and it's for people not wanting to see the penetrations, not wanting to see the penises and the vaginas and etc. And I think that's also totally okay. Just watching how people connect with each other and the beauty of erotic softer content.
No, it's a beautiful point. And I think it's very validating for people to also just hear that, while porn is an option, you don't have to engage with it. If you do, maybe these are things to be aware of, and maybe this is a healthier, more ethical way to engage with it, but that you also don't have to if it's not your jam, and that's totally okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I've super, super appreciated your time here, and I think this will be super beneficial for all our listeners, and everything will be listed in the episode notes for y'all to go and check out. Thank you so much, Erika, for your time today.
Thank you. Big kisses.
Yes. All right, that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for making it all the way through and keeping your ears, your hearts, and your minds open. It would mean so much to me if you could take a second or two after listening to this episode to leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you're enjoying about the show. I love reading, what your favorite episodes are, where you guys listen, and definitely feel free to share this with a friend. I mean, part of how we break down the stigmas around these topics is by talking about them, right? And sharing them with more people. So definitely share the podcast. And again, really wanting to include all of you in this podcast. So if you have questions or you want to share a thought or an experience, please send in a voice memo to ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com. And I'm really excited to keep having these conversations and breaking down these stigmas. So thank you all so, so, so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time.